Inflation 7.9%, lower than expected, still 4 times higher than what the Bank of England would like it to be. Your reaction this morning, sir?
Yeah, good move in the right direction. Obviously, getting inflation down is one of the key methods of ensuring that families aren't hit by, these higher, ever faster rising prices. So good news, and led by things like the energy prices being down, which is good. And of course, we were protecting families from the worst of it over the winter, with about £1,500 towards people's home energy, and the energy price guarantee. Anyway, some of that is starting to work as we aim to halve inflation by the end of the year.
The Prime Minister seems to be cock-a-hoop this morning over this Land Rover, Jaguar Land Rover Tata deal. 9,000 jobs being created. How much financial support are we giving the group in order to build this factory?
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's probably the biggest ever UK car investment, or certainly the biggest for 40 years. This will produce a gigafactory that could produce about half of the UK's electric vehicle batteries. It's been 9 months in negotiation. I've been involved with it throughout, including going to India. And you're right, it's taken some government investment, and for which we are pleased to do, because we think it's 4,000 jobs directly and then thousands more indirectly. But it's a very, very big deal. The exact numbers on this will come out in the normal way because of the commercial sensitivities. They have to be released in the usual way. But it's not really just money. It's also things like our lead in battery research through the Faraday Centre and elsewhere. And those are the things which in the end got Tata, convinced them to set up the factory here. It was headed elsewhere, I should say, a few months ago, and they were impressed by our plans, amongst other things, to drive down electricity prices to make what is a very electricity intensive business viable and profitable in this country.
Where was it going?
It could have gone to Spain. And in fact, that was 9 months ago when I joined this. That was actually the decision that had been made at that time. So we worked very, very long and hard on this.
Talk to me about the fact that I think it was last year the Chinese wanted to buy Nexperia, and the government stepped in because of a risk to national security. No potential risk that Chinese tech could be used in this factory?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there was a decision on what was called Newport Wafer Fab that I actually took last year as business secretary, that we should have the Chinese owners divest of that. In other words, need to sell it. I was not content with the extent of their involvement in the national critical infrastructure that factory represented, and took that decision. Obviously, it's very, very good news with this particular car factory. This is Jaguar Land Rover. This is a brand that's well known to everyone, and it's not just their batteries they'll be able to produce. This is batteries potentially for other vehicles as well. Can't under sort of estimate the importance of this. As I say, probably at £4 billion. Probably the single biggest investment ever into our car manufacturing in this country. And I think people have been concerned about whether we would get, I think I've had this conversation with you before, whether we would get electric vehicle battery production in a big way into this country. Well, we've now got this Jaguar Land Rover factory coming here. We've got £1 billion deal with Nissan. We've got Stellantis, £100 million in Ellesmere Port. We've got £380 million.
I think that's a political body swerve there, Minister. My question was, will there be any cheap Chinese tech involved when the Indians start to build this plant?
No, this is with our partners, Tata and Sons. I've been working very closely with Chandra, who's the boss. It's an Indian investment in a sort of a landmark British market.
So no Chinese tech at all.
Not that I'm aware of, but of course, the supply chain is very important, and we know that a lot of the critical minerals have been coming from China. And one of the things that I discussed with Tata in negotiating this deal is their desire to source the materials from other places, including Australia, Canada, and, it should be said, the UK, where lithium, for example, mining is just getting underway in Cornwall,
I feel like I'm in a
where
geography
lithium
lesson
reprocessing is getting away in the northeast.
OK, talk to me about these migrant cruise ships that were turned back yesterday because it was supposed to house 1,000 asylum seekers, and they've been returned to their owners because they couldn't find anywhere to dock. Isn't that putting the cart before the horse? Shouldn't you have figured out where to put them first?
Well, look, I haven't been involved in that directly. We do know that the other ship, the Stockholm, has now arrived, and
I'm
that's
not
the
asking you
first
about that one,
to
Minister.
arrive.
I'm asking you about these two cruise ships.
Yeah, look, I'm sure these things will get resolved. I don't know the details, I'm afraid, Kay, but I do know that one has already arrived. And more importantly, I know that this government really wants to fix the problem of illegal migration caused by
OK,
criminal
well, that would
gangs getting
help if you
people
knew where
across
to
the.
put the cruise ships, I would have thought, but they've been sent back for now. Talk to me about inheritance tax. If it did come up for a vote, which way would you vote?
Obviously, I'm part of the government, so I will vote with the budget of the government because we have to think about these things overall. And the decisions on tax and spend are matters for the chancellor. So I would certainly wait for his budget before I.
OK, well, I bet you've got a view on this. Nigel Farage is on the front of the Telegraph today. He says that he's got evidence that his bank account was closed because of his views not aligning with the values of Coutts Bank. When I put that to a Labour shadow minister recently, he said he would get out his smallest violin in the world for him. How do you feel about it?
I think it's absolutely disgraceful. I don't have to agree with everything Nigel Farage says to recognise that free speech is a very, very important part of our domestic life. And the idea, and I'm surprised, I'm shocked. But I hadn't heard what you just said about that Labour spokesperson, but I'm shocked by that because I don't have to agree with the principle of free speech. What's happened with some of these banks through this regime, which is known as the PEP regime or politically exposed people, is really actually scandalous. People shouldn't have their bank accounts closed because of their political or any other view, and banks shouldn't be refusing to open accounts on that basis as well. And yet there's a very, very long running problem in this country where banks are misapplying the guidance and rules and not just closing accounts, but are refusing to open them in the first place. And that shouldn't be the case.
Does it need, I mean, obviously people will look at the Financial Conduct Authority and whether it's fit for purpose or not. Does it need government legislation to stop the banks doing this?
Well, the Financial Conduct Authority does need to do more on this. We get stories all the time of people who've chosen to serve through public service, then finding that they are able, and not just themselves, but their families as well, are often able to get unable to get banked. And then, of course, this latest case that you point out with Nigel Farage is another example where he's been unbanked through the process. It's unacceptable, and ministers are working on this. At the moment, there's been a series of measures, including guidance issued to the FCA. There are some concerns it's not being followed properly by the banks, and of course, the government will act on that. And the idea that just because you don't agree with somebody, they shouldn't have a bank account, I would have thought goes to the very heart of what it means to be a democracy. Completely unacceptable.
Legislation necessary?
It may be. We'll do whatever is required, but I think in the first place, the Financial Conduct Authority needs to get a grip of this. And I know that ministers in the Treasury, Andrew Griffiths in particular, is actually acting on this, so we can expect to see more.
Yeah, my old boss, in fact. Cheeky little question at the end. What do you think of the suggestion in the papers this morning that Britain is the working from home capital of Europe, given where you are this morning?
Yes, right. Well, look, I think the sensible thing on this is to, use the digitization of our economy, the ability to, use videos and things where appropriate and where it's convenient. But there's still masses of advantage of meeting up with human beings. And you're right, I'm a very good example. I'm doing this from home right now. As soon as I finished with your interview and others, I'll be off on a tour today and then into Westminster. So you get the best of all worlds if you use this technology, and hopefully we can be a productive economy as a result.